to BLR training. Be sure to ask your supervisor or trainer if you do not understand any of the information presented in the program. Welcome to BLR training. Did you know that motor vehicle accidents are the most common form of death of all workplace fatalities? And vehicle accidents, injuries, and fatalities outside of work are also on the rise due to all different kinds of distracted driving and other hazards. Whether you drive on the job or just commute to work, it's important that you stay on your toes and drive defensively to keep yourself and other drivers and pedestrians safe. During this training session, we're going to talk about some techniques that will help you avoid driving accidents and injuries. Be sure to ask your supervisor or trainer if you do not understand any of the information presented in the program. At the completion of this module, the participant will be able to describe the hazards of distracted driving and how to avoid them, demonstrate an understanding of the inhibiting effects of alcohol, drugs, and fatigue, identify the signs of aggressive driving and the proper response, recognize hazardous road and environmental conditions and how to manage them, recall safe driving practices and general rules of the road. Before we get into details of how to drive safely, we need to go over what hazards you will face as you drive. Let's start off with one of the biggest causes of accidents: distracted driving. You can be distracted when you drive for many reasons. To learn them and how to avoid them, select each tab to learn more. Cell phones help us stay safe by keeping us connected, especially in the event of an emergency. But they're also a big source of distracted driving. It's never okay to text while you drive. It takes your mind and your hands off the task of driving. Let your contacts know in advance when you get in the car that you will be offline during the drive. Talking and driving is also a big distractor. Save the conversations for when you get out of the vehicle. Hands-free devices are an option, but remember that when you're engaged in conversation, you're not completely focused on driving. It's best to make a commitment to not use your mobile device while driving. Also, many states have laws against certain cell phone usage, so check your state's laws. Other devices distract you while you're driving also. GPS devices, for example, are helpful to give you driving directions, but they also take your eyes and your concentration off the road, and sometimes your hands too. Always be sure to keep your main focus on the drive and pull over if you need to clarify where you're going. It may be hard to avoid eating and drinking, especially on a long drive, but it does distract you from driving. If you can, pull over or take a break to eat, and be sure drinks are convenient for you to get to so you don't have to take your eyes off the road. The bottom line is, while cell phones are the biggest offender, anything that takes your mind, eyes, or hands off the road should be avoided. For more advice on distracted driving from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, select Distracted Driving from Resources.
Another big factor in driving accidents is the use of alcohol and drugs. It's never a good idea to drive after you've had any alcohol or mind-impairing drugs. There are state laws that define how much is too much when it comes to drinking and driving, and it's measured by your blood alcohol content, or BAC. Basically, when you drink alcohol, it affects your judgment, and the level of your impairment can be measured by a blood or breath test. All states have made it against the law to drive with a BAC of 0.08 or higher, but the penalties vary by state. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what will give you a 0.08 BAC level because everyone processes alcohol differently, and it also depends on other factors, like what you've had to eat. So the safest bet is to simply not drink if you know you have to drive. The same goes with any prescription or non-prescription drugs that may impair your ability to drive. Many prescription drugs will clearly state not to drive while taking the medication, but check your non-prescription drugs carefully for side effects such as dizziness and drowsiness, and avoid driving while taking them. Remember, time is the only thing that will sober you up after drinking. Don't assume a cup of coffee will do the trick. For a look at each state's alcohol and driving laws, visit the Governor's Highway Safety Association at www.ghsa.org. We've all heard horror stories about aggressive driving, often called road rage. There are two things you need to keep in mind here: how to keep safe from other aggressive drivers and how to keep yourself from becoming an aggressive driver. Keep emotions cool. Driving can be frustrating, especially when you're stuck in traffic, late, or if you run into drivers who don't follow the rules. Here's one way to keep your emotions in check. Remember that by getting angry behind the wheel, you are putting your life and others at risk. It's that simple. When people get angry, emotions outweigh logic, and mistakes are made. When you're driving, those mistakes can be fatal. A few deep breaths and some clear thinking may be all you need to keep cool. Keep your favorite relaxing music or funny talk show programmed into your radio. Even when you have control of your emotions, remember others may not. Be careful not to provoke, challenge, or respond to other aggressive drivers. Avoid eye contact with drivers acting aggressively, and never make rude gestures or shout. Aggressive driving can even escalate to violence off the roads once you reach your destination. Don't take the chance. If you see aggressive driving that is endangering safety, report it by calling 911. In doing so, you may be saving lives.
Studies show more than 1/2 of adults admit to driving while drowsy, and more than 1 in 3 actually have fallen asleep at the wheel. Driving while drowsy results in tens of thousands of crashes a year, so avoid it at all costs. Here's how you can do that. Make sure you are not too tired if you have to drive early in the morning or late at night. Those are the danger times for drowsiness. If you find yourself getting drowsy, pull over to a safe resting point and take a cat nap. 15 or 20 minutes should do the trick. Get yourself a cup of coffee and fuel up on food before you get back behind the wheel. Take breaks every couple of hours if you are driving long distances, and always set realistic travel goals. Remember to check side effects of any medications you are taking. Even some non-prescription medicines can cause severe drowsiness. You can't control the weather, but you can control how you react to it. Depending on where you live, you may encounter all kinds of weather that can put you at risk on the road. Select each tab to learn more. Snow and ice, of course, cause slippery conditions and limited visibility. If at all possible, you should try to avoid driving in snowy or icy conditions. If you must drive, take it slowly and know what to do if you get into a skid. To learn more, select Skid Protocol from Resources. Rain is common, but it can really cause some hazardous conditions. As with any bad weather, slow down. Remember that posted speed limits are the maximum speed you should drive in perfect conditions. When conditions are anything less than perfect, you need to lower your speed. Try to avoid puddles, as they may be deeper than you think and can make your brakes less effective. Also, light rain or mist can mix with road oil and cause unexpected slippery conditions, especially after a dry spell. Fog can dramatically decrease your driving visibility. In foggy conditions, use your fog lights if you have them, but never use high beams, because the light can reflect back from the fog, making it even more difficult to see. Also, reduce your speed and increase your following distance to give yourself more time to react to objects in front of you. We'll get more into safe driving procedures like proper following distance a bit later in this session. Wind can be tricky to navigate through. Remember that windy conditions are even worse on bridges and in tunnels, so use even more caution in those places. Your best bet to navigate through wind is to keep a firm grip with both hands on the wheel and be prepared to adjust your steering for gusts. You will also need to be prepared for blowing objects and dust storms that can reduce your visibility. And when stopped, stay away from trees and other objects that could blow over in heavy winds. With any poor weather conditions, remember to always use your wipers if necessary, and headlights, and be sure to change wiper blades regularly.
Night driving poses another set of hazards. Your visibility may be reduced from lack of light or glare of oncoming headlights. In addition, if you need to pull over for any reason, the darkness will make it harder for other drivers to see you. Select each tab for night driving tips. Before you begin your trip, make sure your windshield is clean and clear. Use your lights starting at dusk, and remember to only use low beams when another car is approaching or if you are following another vehicle. Reduce your speed and increase your following distance to give yourself more reaction time in the darkness. If you need to pull over to the side of the road for any reason, be sure you use your hazard lights so other vehicles can see you. To review some additional hazards you might face, select Driving Hazards from Resources.
Okay, time to start talking about what you can do to avoid unsafe conditions on the road. And for that, we'll start at the beginning, which is before you even get behind the wheel. It involves making sure your vehicle is in good driving condition. Know your vehicle's maintenance schedule and be sure you follow it. Each manufacturer has different maintenance plans, which are detailed in the manual. This might include getting regular oil changes and making sure all fluids are at the right levels. Make sure your tires are properly inflated. If they are inflated too low or too high, you're more likely to have a blowout, or the vehicle might not drive or steer correctly. Also, be sure there is sufficient tread left. Know when you should get new tires. Have a mechanic check your brakes regularly to be sure they are working properly. You may not realize your brakes need replacing until they are inspected by a certified mechanic. And before you get on the road, perform a quick inspection to check for leaks, cracks in windows, and make sure everything is working properly, including lights, wipers, and signals. The few minutes you spend before you get on the road can save you hours of headaches or serious injuries.
Now you've checked that your vehicle is ready for the road and you're behind the wheel. One of the first things you need to remember is always wear a seatbelt. Select the forward and backward arrows to learn more. Seatbelts really do save lives, as in hundreds of thousands of lives in the last 30 years or so. Seatbelts prevent you from hitting the steering wheel, dashboard, or windshield in the event of a collision. Protecting your head can mean preventing a concussion or worse. Seatbelts also keep you inside the vehicle if you're in a crash. You're much more likely to be killed if you're thrown from the vehicle in an accident. Seatbelts help protect your internal organs from getting damaged in a collision. They are designed precisely to use points on your body that are surrounded by strong bones to protect those inner soft spots. And seatbelts will help you stay in the driver's seat and maintain control over the vehicle if you're in a crash or if you brake suddenly. Without them, you might be jarred out of position and not able to regain control. Okay, you are now behind the wheel, seatbelt buckled, and ready to go. Now it's time to discuss rules of the road. Here are some. Speed limits. They are there for a reason, and it's to protect your safety. Obey the speed limits, and remember, they are just that, limits. You may need to adjust your speed down to accommodate for more difficult driving conditions. Pass with care and only when allowed. Know your road signs. They're there to direct you when you're unfamiliar with the roads. If there is a Do Not Pass sign, it is there because road conditions are not safe to pass. Use your signals to alert other drivers of your intentions. Remember that your signal lights should be used before you apply the brakes to let other drivers know you will be turning. Think about it. It's not as useful to signal other drivers after you have already slowed down or started your turn. By that time, it's too late to give them a warning. Follow the 3-second rule, which means you should stay at least 3 seconds behind the car in front of you, and even more time in poor driving conditions or at night. You can tell if you're 3 seconds behind by noting when the vehicle in front of you passes a sign or other landmark, then slowly counting to 3. If you pass the landmark before you've reached 3, you're too close.
While there are many rules and regulations when it comes to driving, common sense also comes into play. That means there may not be a rule about a particular way of driving, but logic just dictates it's the right thing to do to stay safe. Always keep aware of your surroundings. Constantly look ahead to be prepared for changes in speed or road conditions. The more warning you give yourself, the better. Also, periodically check your rearview mirror so you are prepared for oncoming vehicles or other hazards. Try to anticipate the unexpected. That way, you'll never be surprised. You can't control other drivers, but you can control how prepared you are to deal with unexpected situations, like sudden brakes, debris in the road, unexpected lane changes, swerves, and more. Even bad weather can come on unexpectedly, so always be ready and alert. Be extra careful at intersections where accidents are common. Always use your signals, and be sure you check all directions before proceeding. And, in general, take a defensive attitude toward driving. Although you might be safe, others may not be. Young and inexperienced drivers share the road with you, and unfortunately, so do distracted drivers, aggressive drivers, and impaired drivers. And finally, remember you must share the road with cyclists and pedestrians. Ideally, they will be off to the side, but give them as much space as you can in case they make unexpected moves into your driving lane. You may get frustrated with pedestrians and cyclists who do not obey their own rules, but think about how you might feel if you hit and injured a person, even if it was not your fault. Even when you take all the right steps and follow all the driving rules, accidents can be inevitable. Human error can never be completely eliminated. So let's talk about what you should do if an accident does occur. Select the forward and backward arrows to learn more. Try to stay calm. An accident is an upsetting event, so be as clear-headed and calm as you can to diffuse the situation. Try to get off the road as soon as possible to a safe area. If your vehicle is no longer operational, get yourself to the side and out of traffic. If you are able, check all other persons who were involved in the crash, including your own passengers and passengers in other vehicles. Immediately call 911 if anyone is injured. If there are no major injuries, call the local police to report the accident. You will need an official police report to submit to your insurance company. Jot down license plates and other details you might not remember when asked later, including a recollection of how the accident occurred. Unfortunately, sometimes people leave the scene of an accident before police arrive, so be sure to document as much information as you can as soon as possible.
Here are the most important points to remember about defensive driving. Distracted driving takes your attention off the road and greatly increases your chance of an accident. Alcohol, drugs, and fatigue inhibit your reaction time and alter your mental state, making it hazardous to operate a vehicle. Aggressive drivers don't care about the dangers they create. Give them lots of space and don't retaliate. Weather and road conditions come with their own set of hazards. Remember to slow down and adjust for conditions. Use common sense when driving. If it seems wrong, it probably is. If you do get in an accident, remember the steps to follow.